Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry. This video is going to contain my overall thoughts and impressions on the new Mercurial Gauntlet mode. I'll also be releasing a video later today on the Bridal Banner preview, so stay tuned for that. If you're not aware, Mercurial Gauntlet released today, and basically it consists of 100 maps, 20 of each element ascending in level, where you're facing off against a dragon, Roy Fafnir III, who guards the treasure trove, the treasury, of the Halidom and can grant you rewards every month based on how many levels out of those 100 that you actually clear. Now, unfortunately, the levels are very static and very homogeneous. It just consists of Roy Fafnir III, that dragon, sitting in the middle of the arena with his size scaling up depending on the level of the quest that you're facing, and he kind of just sits there as a damage sponge and occasionally sends out shockwaves that push your team back, which is the primary challenge in this fight since you have a 1-minute time limit and you want to stay on top of him and deal as much damage as possible. It is a very straightforward fight, which is what was advertised in What's Ahead Part 4. I know a lot of us, myself included, had built up our expectations for this and were hoping for something that would be more interesting or more dynamic, especially with a word like mercurial, which means fickle or subject to change. I had hoped for some random or procedurally generated elements, some type of variety in content that could keep me coming back, but as it turns out, you just have to fight the same quest essentially 100 times for this new mode. I've completed it, and what I'm playing now is basically the way I completed it. I'm just going to show water, but essentially I just auto-battled all the way through level 20 on each of these different elements and had no problems until the very end. On the Shadow Gauntlet, I did run out of time, basically just replaced my healer, and it was no problem to clear either on Auto Battle. So I think that the gameplay aspect of this is really weak. That's kind of to be expected based on what was said. It's almost more like a tap battle essentially, because the only gameplay that you might have with this is timing to iframe the shockwaves, and that's kind of it. There's not a lot here. However, the rewards are very good. We have a whole slew of endeavors that came out with this, and they include Twinkling Sand, which means we now have access to Twinkling Sand, which is used to craft powerful 5-star elemental weapons in the base game. Previously, this was something that was time-gated by events, and so if you had just started off, you couldn't actually craft special weapons until you had played a couple events, gotten some Twinkling Sand, and could use those as a crafting material. Now this is here in the base game, so anybody who's playing and is able to complete these various stages of these challenges can have access to those 20 Twinkling Sand. That and the other rewards like Eld Water and Consecrated Water are nice. Basically, they're split up into two. There are First Clear and Endeavor rewards that you can collect now, and then there's a treasure hoard, essentially, that you can collect once a month on the 15th that increases in size depending on how many levels of the gauntlet you're able to clear, up to the maximum of 100 levels. So overall, the reward structure is good. I like the music, I like the arena they designed. It's a cute dragon that we're fighting against, but I have to admit it is a bit of a bummer that the battles themselves are so shallow. And what I had hoped with the word gauntlet was we actually have another multi-enemy type of quest in the game, since it seems like in so many quests we're just fighting one boss. Now on the bright side, Roy Fafnir III can be affected by pretty much anything, afflictions, debuffs, so it does feel kind of good to put together an all-star team of your strongest adventurers in an element without worrying about things like that. That part is kind of satisfying, and I do enjoy that. It's cool to see your strongest water or flame or wind team pop off and just beat down against Roy. But overall, yeah, I think the gameplay in this is pretty poor, and coming after such a long drought period where we had Void Poseidon also kind of just being a damage sponge, kind of sitting there just getting attacked, and then having 2 raids in a row, it feels like this was a pretty big miss in my opinion. I just think that we need a little bit more from Dragalia as experienced players to something that we can't just auto battle in one day and have to auto battle so much. So for my reading of the information that we got in the notices board, this will be something that recurs every month, but it sounds like your level carries over, so I hope that you don't have to do this 100 times per month or more if they increase the levels down the road. If they increase the levels by 1 to 5 per element every month, I wouldn't mind that. It would give you something new to do. And I do want to say that if you're a newer player, or if this is harder for you, well, at least you have some content, and in that sense I think it's okay and it's good that they have something out today. But that being said, I think there's not a lot to strategize or really talk about here. You'll want a helper who can either buff your team, debuff the enemy, so Elisanne would be a good helper for this with Bellathorn equipped. Maribel or Student Maribel would be good helpers for their element. Ieyasu with the bleed debuff could also be a good helper. Pretty much besides that, you want to bring your strongest team as possible. You don't necessarily need to run a healer. It's not going to be relevant until the later levels where the Fafnir actually does shockwaves that push you back and deal some damage, so it's possible for adventurers to die. But there's not much more to say other than power up your elemental teams, get materials from elemental ruins and dragon trials, and continue unbinding those mana circles and powering up your characters with crystals, leveling them up, and leveling up your Halidom. So I think it's good that there is some permanent content in the game that makes clear the importance of elemental team building. Since that is something that comes up every time there's a raid or facility event, you look at your roster and realize all of a sudden, if you're newer to the game, hey, I need to power up my whole flame team. So in that sense, I do think this is kind of a good mode. It's gonna guide people, hopefully, to create teams like that they can then use in future content. That aspect of it I do like, but in terms of the actual gameplay, I have to say, for me, it's a bit of a miss. Anyway, that's pretty much all I want to say on Mercurial Gauntlet. Like I said, I'll make a separate video to break down the banner preview that we got for our bridal banner. Other than that, we also got an announcement that we're going to have a rerun of A Wish to the Winds facility event. Having another rerun after this somewhat disappointing new mode feels kind of bad as well. As somebody who played this already, I have to say, with the advent of Void Battles, content has felt kind of sparse in Dragalia Lost. We used to get events back to back, and at that point, I felt like we were too fast on the treadmill, and now I feel like we're way too slow. So this event rerun will last until the 30th. It's going to be a great time to pick up the Wind Shrine facility that will power up all your wind adventurers. Start preparing your wind team to take this on. The enemy Cyclops does inflict bog, so be aware of that. There's some bog-inducing traps, water on the map basically. So a bog res team would be preferred, and I think they'll add a master difficulty challenge battle since that wasn't around the first time the event came out. It's a pretty good story, I won't spoil anything. It's kind of in the middle of the pack for me as far as facility events go, but the characters, Lowen in particular, are so beloved by the community that I think it's cool that they actually gave this one a rerun. That's gonna do it for this video though, everyone. I'd love to hear what you think about Mercurial Gauntlet. Is it giving you any trouble at all? Is it fighting back at all? Are you enjoying the mode? Did it meet your expectations, or do you feel like it's kind of a disappointment, as I do? Let me know in the comments below. Otherwise though, thank you so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.